Hello, everybody, and welcome in. It is time once again for Blitz Boys here. Slade, Nick, and I are all together to bring you another updated week of college football. We just finished the semifinals. We're obviously going to talk a lot about that. Has some other interesting bowl games going on as well. Have some transfer portal stuff we want to talk about. It's going to be a great episode. We're excited to bring it to you guys. We hope you enjoy it. Let's go ahead and dive into this week's episode of Blitz Boys. All right, so let's go ahead and let's just get it started with the playoff games that we had. Obviously, the first one we're going to talk about is the Rose Bowl. What an exciting game this was! Goes down to overtime. Uh, Michigan finally gets over the hump. They get by Alabama. They win their first semifinal. They win their first bowl game in 7 attempts. So congratulations to Michigan and Coach Harbaugh. I just want to get your guys' initial thoughts on the game and everything that happened. Nick, we'll go to you first. And obviously, being a fan of the Big Ten, are you guys happy that a Big Ten team won a playoff game? Are you more excited that Alabama lost? Give me your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, for Michigan to be in the Natty Finals, to a certain extent, if you're a team that one of your two losses was to them, makes you look a little better. And then you look at the fact that I'm pretty sure the final score of the game, I'd have to look back, was the exact same or at least pretty damn close to what our game against them was. Um, so I guess if you're a fan of moral victories, that kind of makes you feel a little better. I'm not, but for some of the Penn State fans out there, I'm sure some of them looked at it in a positive light. I also feel, and I believe we're going to get to this in a minute here, but I feel like Bama is literally any other play in their playbook being called away from at least going into overtime in that game, or at least having a chance at overtime, depending on extra point and whatnot. But I had sent this to you guys in a message. Um, no matter what happens this coming Monday, the Big Ten next year is going to have the national championship winner. So that's kind of cool. But it's not Penn State, so I can't sit here and act like I'm happy about it. However, I congratulations. As much as I talk shit on Michigan and Harbaugh and all that, like you said, finally made it over the hump. That's one thing us Penn State fans can't say. So congratulations to them and being able to do it. Um, Honestly, I thought that the refs and the NCAA were going to somehow get Alabama through. So the committee sounds right for putting Bama in. Let's be honest, after watching Florida State against Georgia, I don't care how many opt outs they had. Bama over Florida State was the right call anyway. It was still a competitive game. It was a great game to watch. But as far as, like I said, moral victories, not a big fan of them. But great game, and great build up to the hype of that's to build on top of what already comes with the national championship game.
Slade.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just watching this game, if you watch the entire game, you say it goes to overtime. I mean, 9 times out of 10, not knowing who scored last, I'm going to guess Alabama won this game because Michigan tried every single opportunity they could to lose this game. From the starting drive, J.J. McCarthy throwing an interception, ended up being the defenders out of bounds, to their special teams just trying to hand the ball to any Alabama person that would take the ball from them. They controlled the pace of play in the first half. Alabama goes in. We had talked about this before. Nick Saban is just different. I mean, I said it multiple times to you, George, that Kirby Smart and Nick Saban are different. At halftime, they go in, they come out. It's a completely different team. Whether they were up by 21 at half or whether they're down by 7, whatever the deal is, they come out and they're a completely different team, and they know all of the deficits that they had in the first half. They're ready to capitalize on those in the second half, which is exactly what Alabama did. Alabama controlled the ball in the second half. Um, that being said, I mean, Michigan tried to throw this this game away just about every other drive, whether it was special teams or some boneheaded penalty on them, whatever the deal was. So the fact that they were able to, kind of slay the dragon in Nick Saban, it's pretty crazy. I mean, and they didn't really use Blake Corum as much as what I expected them to, and until it mattered. I mean, they used him at the very end. It was again right there. I thought what's number one's name on Michigan? He, you know,
Wilson.
yeah,
Yeah,
he
I keep calling
he
him Garrett
pushed,
Wilson. It's Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson.
yeah,
I
pushes the
keep trying
dude
to
in the
call him
back,
Garrett
gets a
Wilson. I was like,
penalty,
that's definitely
called,
not.
gives up a horrible penalty. And then the next play he is out wide open, catches the ball, and kind of or not the next play, but down the drive or whatever,
Yeah.
capitalizes on that. I mean, it's just there was so many opportunities for Alabama to, just do the Alabama thing and just not make any mistakes, get that there. It would have been nice if they announced what the other two play calls were during the timeouts there at the end of the game before the not optimal snap that resulted in Jalen Milroe just diving at somebody's feet. That and his offensive lineman taking him out didn't help. But yeah, I just think, George, I think you went over this. So many options they could have done with that play there. And I mean, they put the ball in his hands. You have the guy going swinging out to the left. He's what seems like wide open. He's got a running start on the defender. You'd think pretty easy play for him to walk it in, but
Mhm.
Seemed like a lot of pressure on Alabama's team, and that's the first play it seemed like that it showed. Also, the entire season, it seemed like every time I turned Alabama on, Jalen Milroe was getting the ball at his ankle snapped. Like
Mhm.
there has to be someone else that can snap a ball 10 out of 10 times to his chest. I don't understand. I mean, that was what set up the 4th and 31 play against Auburn. This
Yeah.
is what ends up setting up this last play of the game here. I mean, I I hope that the the center is able to get to the NFL, make a good life for himself and whatnot. But I mean, Jesus Christ, Nick Saban should have benched his ass.
Yeah, no, I mean that was not only like you said, not only the storyline of the entire game, but the entire season as well. It was well documented the struggles that the center quarterback exchange has always been. Um, so we've danced around it a little bit. We've mentioned it. Let's look at the last play. See if I get it to pull up here. So here we are, 4th and goal. Now, my initial reaction, I agreed with you guys. I thought this was a horrible play call, but you know me, I like to watch film. I sat here, I looked at the play. I also listened to a lot of other people the past couple of days talk about this. So, Slade briefly mentioned, so this is supposed to be an RPO. What's happening here is this running back is motioning out. First thing they're looking at is if obviously if a guy goes with him. But second is he's supposed to read the defensive end right here. And when that defensive end goes, if he traces the running back here, it's a run. So what's going to happen when the ball is snapped is he gets directly upfield. He gets way too deep, and the hole is here. So there is a hole. What happens is the right tackle, right? I'm using my cursor, like you guys can see what's happening, but the right
I was,
tackle, yeah, sorry, the right tackle is just literally going to get shoved in the Jalen Milroe's face.
Mm,
Now, does the timing kind of get delayed a little bit because of the bad snap? Yes, I don't think it's enough to affect the play as badly as what happens. But when you watch the right tackle, he literally gets shoved into Jalen Milroe. Another thing to make note of is the right guard is going to pull to the left. He's going to lead block. He's supposed to pick up the final linebacker, and that's supposed to make the open hole for Milroe to get into the end zone. Two things that happens aside from the right tackle getting shoved into Milroe. One, Milroe just kind of also runs right into the middle. He doesn't follow the gap, but also there's not really a gap there because of getting
he
shoved
didn't make
into
a
it. But
read. He didn't even give
well,
them a chance to bite on the running back because he doesn't look at him.
again, he's not necessarily looking at the. He sees that defensive end getting so far upfield, and when you see the play start here, he's going to go straight up the field, and the gap is there for Milroe to run through. But the second thing I want you to look at is when that right guard pulls, he will miss the block on the linebacker. So I think even if there's a perfect snap, even if that right tackle doesn't get shoved into him, missing the block on the linebacker is literally going to get shoved in, or the missing block here is gonna is it not gonna play? Wow, I did all that work and it's not even playing. Awesome. Anyway, yeah.
It's been
So
everywhere. Everyone's seen the video though. They know
yeah,
that
yeah. So
he
anyway,
misses.
just
He
go.
he he gets hit by the guy that doesn't get blocked, the linebacker that you're talking about, and taken out at the knees by his own lineman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So just anyway, that's what I'm trying to get at. Just go watch the play. The right tackle literally gets shoved into his lap. The oh wait,
Here
no,
it
it's gonna
goes.
play now. Okay, right tackle shoved into him. Like I said, if you look at the right guard pulling around, he whiffs on the linebacker. So here he goes. He pulls, whiffs. So even if Milrow doesn't get the his offensive tackle into his lap, he's getting tackled by the linebacker. But if you look at the defensive end all the way on the left, he goes so far upfield. That's Milrow's
Yeah,
instant key. I need to get up the field. And so that's why I don't think the play call is bad. The execution was obviously horrible, and I think that speaks to Michigan's defensive line more than anything. And that's what they were doing all game. And my
5
my
sacks
first
in the first
reaction,
half.
4.
No,
They got
4. Sorry.
fifth in the fifth, or maybe it was 5 in the first half, 6 total. Anyway, I know they only got 1 in the second half. But regardless, it was Michigan's defensive line made the difference in that game, and they stepped up when it mattered the most. And like I said, the fact that the right tackle was one of the best players, one of the best offensive linemen, and he got driven 5 yards and literally sat in Milrow's lap, and that kind of just busted the whole play from the beginning. And there was no chance for Milrow to even get into his hole. And like I said, even if he gets past that guy, that linebacker went right by the guard. He was going to wrap up Milrow. So I don't hate the play call anymore now that I've sat there and looked at it. And but if if the first thing doesn't happen, the second thing is going to, and so it's just 2 bad blocks by the offensive line there. Um, Go ahead.
I just wanted to hear again, what are your thoughts now on Big Ten defense? Do you think that their ranking within the year has kind of been correct? I picked Alabama to win this game because I thought Nick
Yeah.
Saban was going to have an answer for it. I mean, him and Kirby Smart have had answers for any team that's been put in their path recently, whether it's the Big Ten, the ACC, whoever it was. But I know that you were a big stickler in saying that. Not saying that their defenses are not worthy of being ranked high, but just saying that
Right.
the offenses were that shit that if
Right.
your offense isn't scoring points against anyone, then yeah, of course your defense is going to be ranked high against that
Yeah.
team.
Now, I did tweet this after the game, so I do take back everything bad I said because Michigan's defense carried them. Now, I will say there were plenty of bad defensive performances from the Big Ten. Iowa, for one, Iowa just got dismantled by Tennessee. I mean, I understand Penn State had some guys out on defense, but still, their defense did not look that great. I know Manny Diaz has also moved on. Still, Ohio State, while they definitely had some success, they struggled and they fell apart late. But I would say that was probably more so on the plus side as compared to some of the other teams that we saw from the Big Ten. Um, but there have been some very good defensive performances out of the Big Ten. Um, Northwestern was one, but also Utah's offense sucks. So again, toss up there. But I feel like it's balanced out. I
Mm.
think we can say it's balanced out like a lot of other things. But Michigan's defense, the way they performed against Alabama and held them in check. Now the real test is this weekend or this upcoming game because we've seen how electric the Washington offense is. We're going to talk about the game here in a second. That's going to be the true test. If they can succeed there, I will. I from now on, I'll say the Big Ten has the best defenses everywhere. I don't care what the offenses look like, but they need to get by that Washington offense first. Speaking of that game, let's go ahead and move into the Sugar Bowl, and we'll talk about this for a little bit. The Huskies hang on late. The one thing I want to say here before I let you guys discuss this um, is, and I made videos about this. Why can no team function with a minute or less left on the clock? Um, so for those of you that didn't see it or don't know what I'm talking about, um, Texas kicked the field goal. They're down by 6. They kick an onside kick. Washington recovers it. Texas has 2 timeouts. Um, and so obviously Washington runs 2 plays. They try to run a third play, and they get a couple yards. They're just trying to run the clock out. Well, player ends up getting hurt, so there's an injury timeout. They punt the ball. Texas has enough time. They get within scoring range. They don't ultimately score. My whole issue with this is, I some people were saying, take a knee all 3 plays. I'm fine with just doing something the first 2, but that third down play, they should have absolutely just taken a knee, not because looking back at what that play call was, and I wish I got the video of that. And I was arguing with some more people today online, and they're like, "Oh, they're trying to get the first down like they did against Oregon because that's how they sealed the game against Oregon. It was a 3rd and 8, and they ran a jet sweep to the outside. They got the blocking, and they picked up a huge first down. It was more than the 8 yards they needed. It was like a 20-some yard run. They sealed the victory there. You have that play in your fucking arsenal, and on 3rd and 4, you just run a low percentage run up the middle against a stupid loaded box. Texas knew what was coming. It was a tight formation as well. That when they ran that play against Oregon, everything was spread out, and then everybody pulled to the right, and they had a bunch of lead blockers. Johnson runs out there, finds a hole, cuts up field. You have the perfect play for again, that was 3rd and 8, and that got you 20. So you know what you need to do on 3rd and 4. Get to the edge, especially in a loaded box situation like that was. And what they did is Johnson just kind of stands there for a minute and then tries to hit the hole, gain whatever he can. That was not a first down. That was not a let's get a first down play call. That was don't fumble the ball. Just take a couple seconds off the clock and go down, and then we're gonna punt the ball on 4th down. So in that situation, why the fuck are you not just taking a knee? Because then again, now your running back is hurt. We still don't know the severity of this injury. We don't know if he's going to be able to go for the national championship game. He looked like he was in a ton of pain. I hope he can because again, he's one of the best players in college football. Very underrated player in college football. And for him to be out for the national championship game is really going to hurt Washington's 1-2 punch offense. So I really hope he can go for them. But again, it just comes back to why are you not taking a knee? It's the Miami situation, all slightly different, albeit, but still, you know, just take the knee there. You run the clock down to 22 seconds. I would also just let the play clock run out. You're going to back your punter up 5 more yards, give you a little bit more room to pin it in deep. Do that. Don't get a kick catch interference. Worst case, just take the touchback. Now they have to start at the 20, and now you're asking the other team to go 80 yards in 22 seconds. Just play semi-competent defense and you'll be fine. And so that was my biggest disagreement with it. Of course, Washington fans were telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, listen, one, I actually coach football. Two, I've led how many goddamn NCAA dynasties and national championships? I think I know how to manage a fucking clock. So that was my biggest thing. And again, that's the one mistake the Washington coaching staff made all night. I don't think it's the worst thing because obviously it ends up working out at the end, but still, I think there could have been better clock management is all I was trying to get at. And of course, whatever. Um, Regardless, fantastic game. Penix, it is insane to me how many people are talking now after the fact that, oh my God, Penix is so good. Maybe he should have won the Heisman. No fucking shit. If you dipshits would watch West Coast football, you would have understood how good Bo Nix and Michael Penix really were. I mean, we talked about it a little bit. But that Pac-12 championship game might have decided the national championship game. We'll have to see how everything shakes out. But B, I think it decided the Heisman. I think those two should have been the Heisman front runners. Whoever won that game gets the Heisman trophy, and instead we hand it to Jane Daniels, who no disrespect, is a very elite quarterback. He did very good, but almost nobody talked about Michael Penix's stats of the entire season. Once Bo Nix lost the Pac-12 championship, everybody's like, we're just going to give it to Jane Daniels. But now, after he balls on in the Rose Bowl, or not, excuse me, not the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, now everybody's like, "Oh, wow, look how good he is." And the last thing I'll say too, and I've said this in some other videos this week as well, the Washington receiving staff or core, I think, is one of the best in the country and one of the best that we possibly have ever seen. I compare them to the 2019 LSU wide receiving staff. I think they are just as good. One of my favorite tweets I saw from this weekend is when you watch Washington football, there's no such thing as a 50-50 ball. We coach our quarterbacks, coach our wide receivers. Hey, if it's dead even, we're just going to throw you the ball. You got to go up and come down with it. In those situations, it is a 95-5 ball because Washington is coming down with that thing no matter what. Their receiving core is insanely talented. Of course, you have Michael Penix who could freaking throw it through a window a mile away. And so Washington is an amazing team to watch. I don't want them to win this upcoming week, but I can't. That's why I picked them to win the Sugar Bowl. I can't pick against them anymore because I'm tired of doubting them. Because every time you do, and what scares me about this upcoming week is the fact that we're making them 4.5 point underdogs. I'm like, when are we going to learn here? Because we did that with Oregon, made them underdogs twice. They kicked Oregon's ass. Just did it again with Texas. Like maybe we should stop. I'll stop talking now. Nick, we'll go back to you first. Your thoughts on the overall game and so on.
Yeah, so before I get into the game, I just wanted to talk about you're talking about Heisman. and how Daniels won it and how Penix could have, in my opinion, should have won it. I think I'd shared this to you guys. I seen it a couple weeks ago. I want to say it was like the first week after the regular season ended. Jaden Daniels had a wide receiver. I'd have to bring up the stats again to be sure, but since you were talking about it, I figured I'd bring it up. That had comparable, if not better. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but comparable, if not better, stats than Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, I think Daniels is a better quarterback than McCord. So take that how you will. But Penix spread the ball around. Penix ran the offense very efficiently. Did what he was asked to do. I don't want to use the phrase game manager because he's more than a game manager. He is an elite college football quarterback. But he plays so efficiently and just does what he's supposed to do very well that it almost makes him seem like a game manager at times. And maybe that's why he was counted out in the Heisman race because he looks so effortless. I'm pretty sure I sent you the video earlier of the one deep ball he threw. He couldn't step into it. He didn't even get a full arm extension. The ball went like 40 some yards and it was just perfect. He looked so effortless that, to casual watchers, people that didn't watch every game of his, might not have thought that he was an elite quarterback. And now everybody's watching these college football playoffs and they're like, holy shit, this guy's good. He's been good all season, guys. Not telling you that, telling everybody else that he's a great quarterback. And, I'm excited to see what he does in the national championship game. As far as the game itself goes, again, another great game. I don't remember every game that's happened the last couple of years, but it seems like, there was at least one semifinal game that was a blowout. Might not necessarily have been the way everybody expected, but it's still at least one semifinal game that was a blowout. Both of these were competitive. Both had a chance to go to overtime, or at least come down to the very last couple seconds. And this game, it could have gone either way, especially with, like you said, the clock management that happened. Texas has a very good offense, but with the way both teams were playing, with the scores that happened, you're talking about a touchdown a quarter for each team. I like, if I'm Washington, like you said, I would have liked my odds at 22 seconds left in the game. Even if they only had to go 80 yards, if they had to go more than that, I really like my odds. But it worked out. I had Washington winning this game. I'm pretty sure I had Washington win this game. I don't remember if I changed my mind or not, but I know they were my initial pick.
I put you down for Texas because you didn't tell me so.
Oh, did you? Okay. All right. Well, like I said, I initially my choice was Washington. I was kind of up in the air about it a little bit, but anyway. So, I'm glad to see that I was kind of late on the hype train. Well, I don't know about late because everybody else was kind of was later than I was on the hype train. But ever since I want to say probably about week 8, I was fully on the Washington hype train, and it doesn't happen often, but they've proven me right so far. Not for your sake, George, but I hope that they could seal the deal, end up winning it all. I think they deserve it, especially with the schedule they played and the way they've played through that schedule. But yeah, they had some rough spots, but it's college football. You're going to have that. Again, just glad to see that they could pull it off. Great game. And hopefully, if it comes down to a situation where the clock needs managed late in the national championship game, they do a better job. Because I don't think Michigan's offense is nearly as good as Texas's offense. As a whole, there's some things that they do better, but I think overall, not as good as Texas's offense. So hopefully the defense can stand up, do what they got to do. The offense can continue to do what they've done all season, and it's going to be a good game.
Slade, before I let you go, I just want to talk about what Nick just said. The only thing I'll disagree with there is where I see you're going with that is we've seen Texas be able to move the ball fast. Texas has that ability. We haven't seen Michigan have to do that, or we haven't seen Michigan do that, but I think that's because they haven't had to. And so, I'm not disagreeing with you. Maybe
against Penn State. last drive of the game, they did it real quick.
Yeah, well, when you give them the ball on the 49-yard line, refuse to tackle. But yeah, no. So Well, I'm not saying that Michigan could do it any better than Texas. I'm just saying that's the only kind of
Yeah,
discrepancy I
and no
see.
hate on Michigan's
Yeah,
offense either.
yeah,
I mean, obviously, they're in the national championship for a reason. The
yeah,
defense wins championships, but you got to score points to get there. So
yeah. And Slade, I'll let you go, but once you're done, I completely forgot to talk about the Michigan punting, punt returns. But I'll talk about that after Slade
Special
talks to
teams,
us about the Sugar Bowl. Yeah,
emphasis on the special. Um, yeah. So I first off, I just want to say I already thought that Michael Penix is a really good quarterback. Definitely deserved to go to the Heisman ceremony and everything. But I do think that Jaden Daniels' stats deserve to be the Heisman this year. I think that he played in the SEC, played a lot of the tough teams while still putting up those numbers. Both Penix and Nix played in the Pac-12, where there's a lot of
what are you saying about the
offense,
Pac-12, Slade?
a lot of
yeah.
offense,
What the
not a
hell,
lot of
man?
secondary. There's a lot of opportunity for these guys. Now, obviously, Penix showed that it doesn't matter if there's a secondary or not. He's putting it into the guy's arms. The guy doesn't have to dive for the ball or go back for it or anything. Like the dude's just running, doesn't even have to look, and it just shows up in his hands. I saw a video today. They flipped the video to make it look like Penix is throwing with his right arm, and they're like, "This is the most beautiful." You thought that him throwing
Yeah,
left-handed was beautiful. Look at it
yeah,
right-handed.
yeah. No, I
and
did see that. I was like, what? At first, I didn't see the
You
caption,
see
but I'm watching the
the
video.
half
I'm
the
just like,
down or the field markers backwards.
no, I just
Oh
I've seen him throw left so many times. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with it? Like I couldn't piece it together, but my brain's
yeah,
like, there's something wrong with this video. And then finally, I saw the caption. I'm like, oh wow, I'm a dumbass. Like, yeah, obviously, I
yeah.
knew it was left-handed.
But yeah, so I think that Texas lost this game for themselves.
Yeah,
Specifically, I think that he scripted they said talking before the game, everyone thought he was crazy. He scripted the first 40 plays of the fucking game. He wasn't going away from it. The first 40 plays that they called in the game were all scripted the day before. He wrote what plays they were going to call, and that's what he called for the first 40 plays. Didn't work out well because it was they scored one touchdown off of it, but their first drive with more than 5 or 6 plays was towards the end of the first quarter, which was at the end of that 40 play call script that he wrote. I That coupled with his horrible play, they ran down the field to end the game, and then he calls 3 horrible plays. And so I guess 4, but Ewers throws 2 balls out of bounds, and then that. Just like George said, and you, Nick, alluded to, Texas has the ability to move the ball like it's no one else's job. Like they just flew down the field. Obviously, all in luck because there shouldn't have been that much time on the clock anyway. Obviously, it's the rule and the injury and whatnot, but I mean, they got very lucky with all that happening because George had mentioned it. I don't care, they might have ran the 3rd and 8 outside sweep, gets them 20 some yards against Oregon. This is to go to the national championship. You kneel the ball, anyone can get hurt, and that's what just happened. One of their guys gets hurt. I think that you put like respect or whatever you want to say, like, oh, they have to respect the game. You only kneel in the last play, whatever. I don't know. They could have kneeled for 2 drives straight, knowing that Texas was going to not move. Like they could move the ball, but they're going to end up hurting themselves by throwing it out of bounds or whatever,
Mhm.
calling the stupidest plays possible. But yeah, I think you just kneel the ball every time. You put yourself back at midfield, you punt the ball, put Texas deep, and just play it from there. At that point there would be no time left on the clock. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that Texas lost this for themselves. I think that Penix played a great game. All that passing, it only amounted to 2 touchdowns, which is low for Penix because usually when he throws for 500 yards almost, he's got 4 touchdowns. I mean, it was a really good game. It is crazy to think that the Rose Bowl was the SEC versus the Big Ten. The Sugar Bowl was the future SEC versus the Big Ten. It's just really cool. And it'll be interesting to see. Texas averaged 7 yards a carry to start the game, like for the first half, and then they just went away from the run and just decided that they were going to have Quinn Ewers throw the ball 60 times in the second half. I think that Michigan is much better at running the ball, and if they put their two guys rotating the backfield and they just run one-dimensional like they did against Penn State, they realistically have a good chance at winning the game pretty handedly. I would say 7-10 point spread against Washington, just because Washington is going to have to do multiple things to get past Michigan's defense. They're going to have the big plays where Penix hits a wide receiver deep, and it's going to happen, and they're going to get those big plays, burst of energy, but they're not going to be able to win a game on hoping that every one of those hit,
Yeah. Back to the Sarkisian script, like you had brought up. Yeah, 40 is fucking ridiculous. That's almost an entire half of football
Yeah,
in
they
some
said
situations.
usually they write the first drive, like somewhere around 10 plays is what a lot of coaches write going into a game.
Yeah, 10. I mean, the first, maybe even second drive, just so you go long enough, you get a feel of the game flow and so on and so forth. And there, it has to be instinct from then on. But yeah, 40 is fucking insane. I saw that stat too. But like I said, I want to go back to the Michigan punt returning real quick. If they need a special teams coordinator, I am available. I understand it is. I don't know if it's his brother or his cousin, but it's another Harbaugh. Um, buddy, how the fuck do you not know how to catch a punt? And especially in that situation, the first one I will kinda give to them because it was a true freshman. He's just trying to make a play and that shit happens. I get it. It's still in my eyes unacceptable, but the
The
fact
last
that
one, if
it
that's a
kept happening.
safety,
Yeah, no, the
oh
fact that it
my.
kept happening in the second one, you are taught this rule since Pee Wee football. You put your heels on the 10-yard line. If it goes over your head, you don't fucking touch it. He kept backing up, and I'm watching him back up. I'm like, "He's gonna fucking drop this." I said out loud, I was like, "He's gonna fucking drop this." And sure enough, he fucking did. Like, I don't understand how again, in that situation, because your number one job, more than anything, should be to just retrieve the football. Don't worry about trying to make a move. Don't worry about getting hit because you call for a fair catch. They can't touch you. If they touch you, guess what? It's 15 more yards. Just secure the fucking football. And they couldn't do that. So again, Michigan, if you need a special teams coordinator, my guys, I'm fucking available. So just give me a call.
Well, on
Moving on.
the opposite
Yeah, go
side,
ahead.
you saw earlier in the game, right, that Alabama received a punt that it hit off of one of their own guys, and Michigan almost got it. So it was like,
Yeah.
what is going on here?
So let's go ahead. Let's move ahead to the national championship game. What do you guys think the keys to the game are? And Slade, I'll ask for your prediction then, since you won't be able to join us on Monday when we do Out of the Tunnel for the national championship. I'll go over mine really quick. I'll do both offense and defense for Michigan and Washington. Washington's defense, you need to run zone coverage. It needs to be disguised blitzes as well. We really saw Alabama have a lot of success when they went to zone coverage, especially in the second half. That's why Michigan really struggled to move the ball. They thrive in one-on-one situations. Take that away, especially with the running game that they have, the RPOs that they bring to the table. Alabama really neutralized that when they went to that zone defense. Also, their offensive line is one of the best in the country. You're not just going to get to them with a straight up, 5-6 man rush. You need to disguise that. Um, Moving on to the Washington offense, don't get fancy, just protect Penix. They're number 4 in the country in sacks allowed, 11 all season, none in the Sugar Bowl. You need to do that because Michigan's key here is get pressure on Penix. That's why they were able to neutralize Alabama's offense so well. They bring a lot of pressure. They like to go one-on-one on defense. Um, Texas did get some pressure at times, but they weren't able to bring him down at all. Penix is very elusive, so don't let him slip outside the pocket and get those runs or create more time and space to let his wide receivers get open. That's what's going to kill Michigan's defense. And as far as Michigan's offense, is very simple. Don't turn the fucking ball over. That is your key. Do not turn the football over. Do what you do best. March down the field nice and slow. Take that time off the clock. They're not looking for a 45-45 shootout. They want to keep this right like the Alabama game. 27-20 is a perfect score for them. And so don't turn the ball over. Don't throw an interception on your first play from line of scrimmage, even though it got overturned. Don't do it again. Don't fumble any fucking punts. Just don't give Washington extra chances because your defense will give you some opportunities to get an extra possession here or there. Don't waste them by giving the ball right back to Washington. Slay, we'll go back to you first. Your keys to the game, and then who do you think is going to win?
Yeah, so offensively, I think I do want to touch on the part that you said that
Yeah.
Penix is elusive. The fact that they are comparing Texas defender, grazing Penix with a hand versus Milrow getting suplexed multiple times is just baffling. I mean, if Michigan does even once what they did to Milrow to Penix, it's going to be completely different than what he's been used to. Like you said, their offensive line on Washington is stellar, and this is going to be a great game with Michigan's defensive line versus Washington's offensive line, but the two are not comparable. Washington's offensive line is much better than, or played much better in the game against Texas than even Alabama's offensive line did against Texas. But yeah, I think that Penix is going to have to make some big plays for them to be able to stay in this game, in my opinion. Same as I think that defensively for Michigan, their cornerbacks are going to have to play stellar. Their offensive line is going to have to get to Penix. They have to instill some sort of fear in him to make it so that he's not sitting in the pocket waiting for those deep throws. They're getting the ball out of his hands quick. Michigan needs to realize that this is the same exact thing, that this game is the exact same to them as it was Michigan and or Ohio State and Penn State. They need to play JJ McCarthy as he is not going out there trying to look better than Penix. In no way is he better or going to be on the same playing field as Penix. He needs to be a system quarterback. They need to hand the ball off to Corum or the other dude every single fucking play. This is the way that they're going to win the game. It worked twice against the two big schools they played before Alabama. It was the drive that solidified their win against Alabama. I think that they need to realize that this is what's going to win them a national championship, and that's what they have to stick to, the ground game. I don't care if they go out the first drive, they run the ball 3 and out right away. You go out, you do the same thing. I mean, Washington's defensive line is going to get tired. No offense, George, they're used to playing Pac-12 offenses, where it's not as much in your face running. There is a lot of pass blocking or pass rush and stuff. So I think that Washington's defense is, in my opinion, going to be the part that determines this game, because if they're able to put pressure on the run game, then it's going to put a lot of pressure on McCarthy, and he's going to either shine or he's going to fuck up. And they can't put Michigan does not want the ball or the game in McCarthy's hands, in my opinion. I think that if they put the game in his hands, the pressure is going to hit him finally, and it's going to be like a TCU game last year, and he's going to end up being the laughing stock. I mean, they just said it sets it up so poetically, because Jim Harbaugh just sat in front of everyone and said, or Jim Harbaugh, just sat in front of everyone and claimed that JJ McCarthy is the best quarterback to ever play for Michigan, which is just baffling. But he said that, and now Washington's defense has a chance to put it all on McCarthy and them to stick Jim Harbaugh's big shoe down his own mouth. Like, I don't think he could have set it up any better. Either McCarthy wins this game for them because Washington made it so that it's a McCarthy win or lose, or McCarthy loses it because Washington stuffs the run game the entire game. I truly think that Washington's defense determines this. I do have Michigan winning this because I do think that Harbaugh is smart enough to realize that this is probably his best chance of getting to this point, whether he leaves for the NFL, stays, and has a couple of good seasons. This is their best opportunity since he's been at Michigan to win a national championship, especially with the team that they're playing. No offense to Washington at all. Obviously, they've been the underdog all season, it seems like, even though they've been undefeated against every team they go against. But of all the years that they've made, I mean, they weren't going to beat Georgia. They weren't going to beat Alabama in the previous years going into the playoffs. So this is Michigan's best year.
Two things I just want to talk about really quick before we go to Nick. First is I kind of want to disagree with what you said with McCarthy hasn't had a game put on his shoulders. I would argue that last drive to get that game to overtime on Monday, they've really put a lot on McCarthy's shoulders. Yeah, Corum had some decent runs on that, but still, McCarthy had to make some really great throws, and he wasn't spectacular. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I would say that's about as much pressure as you could expect to put on somebody in that situation. Whereas, again, that offense struggled the entire second half. That offense was dead in the water, and now you need to make this late drive with only a few minutes left to get down the field, and tie the game, hopefully send it to overtime. So I mean, that's the only thing I would disagree with there. And the other and I saw a lot of people talking about this as well. While I don't fully agree with what Harbaugh said, and like you said, it definitely adds interesting context heading into this game. The more I thought about it, who like all time, and obviously we can go back to the 50s, 60s, but let's look at back to the early or late 90s. Who was better than McCarthy at Michigan? Obviously, and
I was
even
gonna say
Harbaugh said
that's the
this
context I
when
was looking
he
for, because I
well
mean
when
you had Brady. I don't know.
well,
Like,
that's even Harbaugh had mentioned that. He said, obviously we need to see what Brady's career is, or McCarthy. I'm not, comparing it to his pro career, but he just said at Michigan.
yeah.
And, granted, again, I don't think he's been the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. Also, like I feel like Harbaugh kind of had a decent point that Michigan has never really had great quarterbacks. And again, I'm not saying that's what McCarthy is,
I
but
understand what you're saying,
is
but
he
I
the
also
best of the
feel like
worst?
that'd be like them saying that Trace McSorley was the best. I feel like that'd be like James Franklin sitting up there and saying
Wasn't
Trace McSorley was the best quarterback to go through Penn State.
I feel like he was.
No, but anyway,
He was.
anyway.
Who was better?
So
Who was better?
I'm
Tell
not.
me.
I don't know. I'll bring it up next time we do a podcast. I'll have the stats and
Okay.
everything.
All right.
But
Next week.
I do not think that Trace McSorley is the best Penn State quarterback. Also, but I do think that what I was saying with the JJ McCarthy and the pressure, I don't think that he's been put into a pressure situation where he has fucked up to have now the realization, I already fucked up once. I know what I need to do different this season. Every time he's fucked up, it's been at the beginning of the game when it didn't matter. He threw a pick against Ohio State that ended up being pass interference or something. It got brought back or whatever. Same thing happened against Alabama here. He threw a pick. It was out of bounds. The defender came back in from being out of bounds.
Yeah.
Every time he's fucked up, it's been when it didn't really matter or it got turned over, and so it didn't really affect the game as much. That's kind of what I mean. I think that if he's put into a pressure situation, that at some point, I mean, these are college kids. They're gonna fuck up. None of these guys are going to pro, and especially JJ McCarthy, what's his name? Drew Alar. I mean, what did we say, Nick, before the bowl game? He was like 25 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on the season or some shit like that.
One interception, yeah.
Yeah, 1 interception. Like he played like a perfect freshman year in terms of like what you could expect. And he's probably going to have a worse year next year, but Penn State could do better with him having a worse year. I mean, he could throw more interceptions and Penn State could still do better. I mean, it sounds weird saying it like that, but I just
No,
think that
because you take more chances.
right. I think that if the more McCarthy's put into those pressure situations, I think that there's a better chance he's going to fuck up.
All right, Nick. Your keys to the game for Monday.
Yeah, that was a lot. I don't remember what all was said between the two, but I'm pretty sure y'all touched on most of what I want to say. On Washington's side of the ball, you look at their offense. You got to be able to have some sort of consistency moving the ball. You're gonna get your splash plays, which to add on to that, you can't give up on your splash plays. Because even though their season hasn't been made on splash plays, that's the team they are. They, like I said, they don't rely on them necessarily, but they come. And I was waiting for George to look at the camera and laugh. And you're going to get yards, you're going to get scores off of those splash plays, or at least you hope to. But you have to be able to find a running game, which obviously the running back, big question mark right now. You got to be able to do it however you manage to do it on the ground. You cannot just allow Michigan's defensive line to pin their ears back and come after the quarterback every single play. But at the same time, you can't be scared to drop back. Slade, I believe, was you that said you got to scare Penix and make him be worried to stand in the pocket and hit those deep throws. You got to be able to protect him so that he can do that because he is so good at it. Your team is going to benefit from it. And on the defensive side of the ball, maybe a slight exaggeration, but if I'm Washington, kind of again to build on what Slade said, I'm doing everything I possibly can to put this game in McCarthy's hands. No disrespect to him, but I'd rather put the game in McCarthy's hands than Blake Corum's hands. Or the other dude. Slade said the other dude. I completely forgot his name.
Edwards.
Edwards? Is it Edwards? Yeah. I don't want the game in their hand. Yes, they're going to get their plays. They're going to have their big runs. You got to limit that as much as possible, and you got to do everything in your power to make sure Michigan can't or McCarthy can't just turn around, hand the ball off, and know that he's going to get 6, 7, 8 yards. And then for Michigan on offense, you got to do exactly what Washington needs to stop you from doing. You got to establish your run game. You have arguably the best run game in the country, just based off of not necessarily statistics, but again, the Ohio State game, the Penn State game. I have never in my life witnessed, especially a college football team, just sit there and be able to turn the ball or turn around and hand the ball off and just keep getting yards and keep getting yards and drive down the field. I forget exactly how many plays it was in a row in the Penn State game that they ran, but it kept working. Penn State couldn't do anything to stop it. If you're Michigan, that's the kind of game you want to have, especially against the explosive offense on the other side of the field with Washington. The less you can have that ball in Penix's hands, and limit their amount of times to score, the better off you're going to be at the end. Because again, if you are to go onto the defensive side for Michigan, limit those splash plays, make them drive down the field methodically, because on offense you're looking to do that. You're looking to drive down the field methodically, wear out that defense, and that's really Michigan overall just needs to slow the game down. They play a slower style than Washington. Not that they necessarily play slow style, because even when they're running the ball, I can't imagine how it feels to be on the defensive side when they're doing it. But when you're watching them, like that Penn State game, just turn around and hand it off, turn around and hand it off, turn around and hand it off. That has to feel like you're just getting rapid fire. What was that drill called in the old Madden games, where you had to run through the different blocking things? That's what I imagine it feels like.
Yeah.
I can't think. I wanted to call it Oklahoma, but it's not Oklahoma, obviously.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it looks like when you're watching them do that on TV. Like McCarthy's just handing the ball off, and it just looks like a bunch of blocking pylons just sliding around the field. Holes open up, and the running backs are hitting it. And again, if you're Michigan, you got to keep the game slow, because that's the pace you want to play. You start speeding the game up, you're playing right into Washington's hands. It's going to be fun. These are two completely different style teams, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah. It's going to be a great one. Nick and I will be live Monday evening before the game to get you guys ready for that. So make sure you join us live on our YouTube. Check us out for that. Slade will have to work, so he's got to watch as well. He's seeing somebody else get operated on. Let's go ahead and let's move away from the semifinals and national championship for a minute. We're going to go through and give out some mini awards for bowl season. We're going to pick our best game, our favorite game, the best performance that we think happened in the bowl season, and then also the worst performance. So first up, give me your pick for best bowl game. Nick, go ahead and give me yours first.
Yeah, so I went with the ReliaQuest Bowl.
No, we don't call it around here. It's the fucking Outback Bowl. I don't give a shit if they don't sponsor it anymore.
Sorry. Okay, the Outback Bowl.
He's like, sorry, I went technical on it. That's my bad.
Yeah, sorry. I'm pretty sure even there's more words in front of ReliaQuest, so I still didn't call it the right thing. But anyway, one, because I thought it was funny that George, you texted the group chat and said, "Oh my God, Wisconsin's taking it to LSU." I'm pretty sure they were up like 21-0, and then what felt like 5 minutes later, the game was tied. And that was just, when I seen this game happening. Obviously, you got opt-outs and stuff. I thought it could be a close game. I didn't see it ended up like that. And if you had told me Wisconsin was going to be up 21-0 and then it was going to be a 4-point game, I don't know what I would have told you. But a competitive football game, when it comes to bowl season, it seems like you either get competitive or blowout. There's no real in between. And this was definitely one of the only few, in my opinion, competitive games that happened, and it didn't seem like that at first. Everybody loves a good comeback, and
Okay.
it was fun to watch. I was gonna say it, but I was like, George will say it, so I don't
have to. Slade, your pick for the best bowl game.
Yeah, I mean, I went obviously kind of a cop out here, but the Rose Bowl. I went with you have the team that the entire ACC conference thinks doesn't deserve to be in the Final Four. You have the team that has their coach sit out, was it 6 or 7 games this year based on
6.
cheating allegations? There's if Jim Harbaugh loses, he's going to the NFL. Nick Saban's done if he loses this game. Paul Fonbaum is on Nick Saban's ass every time he loses a game. I think that this thing lived up to it. It went to overtime. You have the cotton candy sky in the background. It was a great game, great to visually watch on TV. This was the only game unfortunately, of the bowl season, other than the Gasparilla Bowl, that I got to watch completely from start to finish. And so I just really loved it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was definitely up there as one of the best. I don't think it's a cop out at all. 2 things I want to say. Can you believe, first of all, people want to move the Rose Bowl away from that fucking stadium? Stephen A. Smith, you stupid fuck. And
I actually
second of
saw the.
all,
Oh,
no, Stephen A. Smith today complained that there was too much
yeah.
traffic getting to and from the game, and that he wants to either move the game or he wants a personal helicopter to
I saw
literally
your
drop him
video.
off on the field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say the opposite. Kurt Herbstreit actually said after the
Yeah.
game that he believes that the national championship be played at the Rose Bowl every year.
And I agree.
Yeah.
I don't hate that
Yeah.
statement. And the second thing I was gonna say is back to Paul Feinbaum. I think the world would be a better place if he died tomorrow. Like I really do. He's a fucking piece of shit. And the fact that ESPN pays him to come on and just say the dumbest shit that I've ever heard anybody
My
say
favorite
every
interaction
fucking
with him
time.
ever is Lane Kiffin telling Miss Terry, Nick Saban's wife, on ball. He's like, Paul's like, you told Miss Terry that? He's like, oh yeah, I'll tell her everything.
Yeah. So the game I picked for the best bowl game was the Gator Bowl between Kentucky and Clemson. Barn burner. Kentucky was up 21-10 entering the fourth quarter. Clemson storms back. They score the game-winning touchdown with 17 seconds left. 765 yards of total offense. Wasn't the best game from a football standpoint, but it had everything. It had a lot of drama. You had Dabo Sweeney falling to his knees after the game was over. I thought it was a great game all around. A lot of fun to watch, and a good way to kick off this past weekend. Moving on, the best performance from bowl season. Nick, go ahead and give us your best performance.
So I took the low hanging fruit on this one. I went with Georgia. Just outmatched. And there was a lot of build up to this game. And I'll get to Florida State a little bit here with the next one. But just if you take out the first, third, and fourth quarter, final score 63-3. You take out the first, third, and fourth quarter, the final score is still 35-3. And that, like, just looking at the box score, kind of tells a story. Maybe not a legitimate story, but in my mind tells a story. Georgia came out, was leading 7-0 after the first quarter, and then they remembered, oh shit, we're supposed to be mad that we didn't make the college football playoffs. Dropped 35 points in the second quarter to Florida State's 3, and then went back to, okay, I think we've done enough. We can just kind of do what we normally do here. Scored 14 in the third, 7 in the fourth. But again, back to the hype. Florida State saying they deserve to be in, and yeah, they had their opt-outs and people that said they weren't playing for, whether it was boycotting, whether it was whatever the hell they want to say the excuse was. In my opinion, I'll save that for the next one. But just coming out and making a point, like, look, this is a team that people are arguing that should have been in the college football playoff. Yeah, they didn't have this person. Yeah, they didn't have that person. But we still dropped 63 points on them. This is a score that you would expect to see if Georgia's playing whatever the worst team in the FCS would be that they happen to have on their schedule in the first 3 weeks. And it was Florida State, a team that people were debating should have been in the college football playoff. So kudos to them. Great performance. Say what you want. You could sit here and say, yeah, Alabama beat Georgia. Maybe Georgia deserved to be in. It's hindsight. I'm not saying that, by the way. I'm just saying it's hindsight. It was just Georgia did what Florida State acted like they were going to do. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. By the way, Georgia did play one of the worst football teams this year. They played Ball State. They only beat them 45-3. Slade,
That's
your
what
worst
I'm saying.
performance.
Yeah, like that. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Or sorry, your best performance of bowl season.
Yeah, I did just want to add on to Nick's Georgia thing real quick. A lot of people will say, Florida State, after they got screwed by the college football committee, they decided that a lot of their players were going to sit out, transfer, whatever their plans were. Georgia had the same thing. They lost to Alabama, and I think 30 of the dudes that stood on the sideline for that game transferred right after the game. I mean, it was along with a bunch of their 5-star recruits that were supposed to be coming in next season. I mean, their team, their school had the most people depleted from it in like a 24-hour period that I think that will be seen even through the rest of this transfer portal season. Ridiculous. So I mean, they played with lesser than their 100% team that they usually put on the field as well, and still went out there and put on quite a show. My best performance is Ole Miss. I think that this was the perfect scenario for Ole Miss to go in here and lose, and it kind of be like, Penn State's defense has been the key all season for them. It proved again here, not the case. Lane Kiffin has been on a transfer portal like kingdom show, basically bringing in every top recruit that he could possibly steal from any team on the market. Basically, he's just going out there. I don't know where all the money's coming from, but he's got it, and he's giving it out like Santa bucks or something, because he's just got everyone coming to Ole Miss right now. And so I really thought that this was going to be the perfect opportunity for them to kind of drop a game and be like, yep, well, we don't care about this. We're looking for next season. Nope. He drops a picture at the end of the game with the game score is like 38-25 or some shit. And that's his age and his girlfriend's age. And that's his Instagram post or Twitter post. And it was just the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen, because there was all kinds of people being like, oh, that's awesome, standing in front of the scoreboard. And then someone comments and says, no, look at the scoreboard. It means something. And everyone starts catching on.
Yeah. No, that was great. I mean, I do love Lane Kiffin. He's great.
Yeah.
My best bowl performance, I went with Virginia Tech. They just looked absolutely otherworldly in that second half. They played in Indianapolis. It was an absolute monsoon. And it came down to who has a better run game, and Virginia Tech just took it to them in the second half. They outscored Tulane 24-10, 362 rushing yards, only gave up 133. We talked very highly of Tulane all season, and obviously the elements did not fit their style of play. Regardless, Virginia Tech, a team that kind of stumbled through their season, and we weren't sure if they were going to make a bowl game. They squeak in at the last minute. Um, they deserve a lot of credit for how they performed in that bowl game. I also have a honorable mention for Kansas. Set an NCAA record for penalty yards in a game at 216, and they still won by double fucking digits. Shout out to Kansas. Kansas is back, baby. I went to bed and I was like, God damn! Like the game was, I think it was third quarter. And I was like, God damn! Like this is a lot of penalties. And then I saw the tweet and it's like Kansas is on track to break the record for not only like a bowl game but like NCAA record. I'm like, God damn! And I was like, they'll clean it up, and they did not. And that was another great game as well. And shout out to Kansas for winning the first bowl game since 2008. Your worst performance. We're gonna talk about Florida State. That's who Nick picked. So we're gonna go to Nick last because I have a lot to say about Florida State. I'm sure Slade has something to add. So Slade, give me your worst performance of bowl season.
Yeah, so my worst performance goes to Syracuse. It was really funny to see transfer from Ohio State, Kyle McCord, on the sidelines for this game to watch his team that he's going to be playing for next year not only control the time in this game, they had more offensive possession in this game than the team they played. They were 5.5-point favorites to start this game, and the over-under at this game was set at 55.5 points. The over-under missed by about 10 points, but that's only because UCF only could score 45 points. Had they been able to get out there a little bit more time, they would have scored 55 on their own. Syracuse just looked abysmal. This was just horrible, and it's just really funny to see McCord, transfer to this school, stand on the sidelines, and watch them put up 0 points while having the ball more than USF did in their 45-point route. The reason why this is crazy to me is because we talk about Georgia, FSU. Georgia had the ball for 36 minutes in this game, which was almost 10 minutes more than was 9 minutes. 9 minutes more than Florida State. And they scored 63-3 against them. No, Syracuse had the ball more than USF in this game, and they lost by 45 points. Just ridiculous. And so I think that they shouldn't have even been able to play a bowl game this year.
Yeah. I went with the ACC as a whole. Obviously for Syracuse, also Florida State. They went 5-6 across their bowl games. Shout out to the teams that won: Clemson, Boston College, Virginia Tech, Duke, and Georgia Tech. 3 of those wins though against Group of 5 teams. Um, and then again, one more time for Boston College. Everybody's been shitting on them all season. Nobody thought they would win more than 3 games. Nobody thought they'd make a bowl game. Nobody thought they would win the bowl game. I took SMU to win this game by 10. Also, SMU, all of their Power 5 opponents they played this year, they lost to. One of those didn't even make a bowl game. So that probably should have told me everything I need to know. But then looking at those 6
You
losses,
picking them should have told you everything you needed to know.
fair enough. Looking at those 6 losses, Syracuse obviously 45-0. Florida State 63-3. The number 2 team in the SEC lost 28-19. The number 3 team in the SEC or ACC, I said ACC, Louisville lost 42-28 to a fucking backup from USC. Then you had UNC just get embarrassed, basically playing at home. And another thing I want to say about that game is there is obviously living in North Carolina, there is a fuck ton of UNC alums that live here, and you're telling me you couldn't fucking sell out half of your section? That's
Give 'em free.
embarrassing.
Give them away free.
That is embarrassing to me. Even if they would have gave him away free, freaking West Virginia fans would have took him because UNC fans, it's not basketball, so they don't give a shit. Which is also funny because UNC basketball played in Charlotte here, and they barely sold any tickets for that. And then Miami, who again can't manage a clock to save his fucking life. Mario Cristobal loses 31-24 to goddamn Rutgers. Just an abysmal showing. And then there's a messy battle with Florida State brewing with them trying to get out of the granted rights. That's a whole nother conversation. And then SMU and Cal are joining the ACC. They both lost. Stanford is also incoming, and they looked like shit last season. I don't expect anything to really change there next year. So yeah, my worst performance of bowl season wins at ACC as a whole. I just want to give my 2 cents on Florida State, and I will make this quick because I'm sure we could talk about this for 6 hours. And I just want to address the Florida State fans as a whole really quickly. Listen, I was on your side, and I stayed in my claim that I thought Florida State should have been in the playoffs, and I still stand by that fact even after that game happened. But you know what I'm not doing is I'm not sitting here arguing the fact after you got your ass kicked 63-3. I understand you had a shit ton of opt-outs and everything that else happened. This team was given 2 paths to go for. You drew Georgia in the Orange Bowl. You had public, for the first time in Florida State's history, they had public sympathy on their side, and a numerous amount of people saying if they beat Georgia, we will crown them a national fucking champion. We don't give a shit what happens. And this team was given a very clear path forward. Play Georgia, play them hard, play them tough, maybe win this game, and you could still, wound up, and everybody makes fun of UCF's claimed national title. It's still a national championship. It is a legit national championship because a poll recognized them as the best team in the country. I am almost positive a poll out there, if Florida State would have beaten Georgia, would have recognized Florida State as a national champion. And so this team was given a clear path forward. Play the game, play your ass off, and win, or do what they did. And again, I'm not blaming the kids for opting out and protecting their future. I get that side of it. But for lack of a better term, the team quit. They didn't give a shit anymore. They thought of it as another meaningless game. They opted out. They transferred out. Everything else that happened. You got your ass kicked 63-3. Sit down, shut the fuck up, and try again next year. Like the fact that they're still sitting here saying, "Oh my god, we were better than Bama. We would have been a better." First of all, you would have been a better game against Michigan. You can't get better than what Michigan and Alabama did. I don't think you would have had any more success or any less success or anything like that. Give it up. Stop arguing that you should have been a playoff team. And I get that it's frustrating, and I get still being upset. But the arguments that these people are bringing into Twitter are fucking absurd. Danny Cannell is the biggest ball baby bitch I've ever seen in my fucking life. If the dude needs to take Twitter off of his phone and just leave it there until next season starts, because if I see him tweet one more time, double backing and fucking going against things that he said in the past about because of points now about Florida State, I can't stand the dude. This is why he got kicked off of ESPN, and that says a lot that you get kicked off of ESPN. Just want to give my 2 cents there. Nick, tell us why Florida State was the worst performance of the season. That was quicker. It was quicker than I wanted to make.
Well, I'm gonna make mine pretty quick because you covered a lot of points I was gonna cover. Like you said, you had 2 paths here. I'm not going to mince words. You chose the bitch path. And these players, all these players that opted out, you're a Florida State fan and you're sitting there defending these guys and saying, oh, we had a lot of players opt out. That's why we got our asses kicked. Again, like you said, you had two paths. You chose the bitch path. And all these players that opted out, I should post this on Twitter and see what Florida State fans say. Out of all the players that opted out, how many of them are projected to be a high enough draft pick that they didn't, that it was smart for them not to try to play to get drafted higher? Most of the time, your opt-outs are going to be projected first rounders, maybe projected second rounders. When you start getting into that third, fourth, fifth round, those are players that are usually going to want to play in a bowl game to try to boost their draft stock. And like I said, I'm not going to mince words here. They took the bitch route, and I'm calling it the bitch route because I don't think these players wanted to play Georgia. I don't think that a lot of these players wanted a full team, or at least as full of a team as they could have possibly fielded, because they wouldn't have had an excuse when they left. And I defended Florida State too. I said that they deserved to be in. Yes, I did say that I did not think that they were one of the four best teams in the country, even with Jordan Travis in, but they deserve to be there. And again, that's a whole different argument that'll happen again next year, I'm sure. But regardless, I think these players were scared. They did not want to play this Georgia team at full strength, especially because Georgia had its own opt-outs, and it would have looked real bad on them if they got blown out by 2-3 touchdowns with a full team when Georgia didn't have a full team. And again, a lot of these players, in my opinion, didn't have a real reason to opt out of this game. And since you covered most of that, I'll just end that conversation at that. But I had two teams here for worst performance, and my second team was Ohio State. And while the performance on the field for Ohio State wasn't great, it wasn't the worst that it could have been either. I mean, it's not like they got blown out by Missouri. Missouri is still a good college football team. And yes, Ohio State had their opt-outs as well. Obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr., he's projected to be a minimum top 5 pick, possibly depending on what route people want to go, top 3. Maybe the Chicago Bears take him at 1. Who knows? But anyway, you've lost a lot of these players on the team. And like I think about Kyle McCord, like Slade mentioned earlier, going to Syracuse now. I don't think he was a great quarterback, especially to Ohio State standards and what they've had recently. But it was just an overall lack of, I don't even know the word that I want to use here, but watching what I watched of that game, it didn't give me Ohio State vibes. Like they really didn't want to be there. Maybe they thought that they deserved the win. Maybe they thought that they were just that much better than Missouri, that they didn't have to try. I don't know what it was, but it didn't feel like they cared to win that game. And on the same side, I felt the same way about watching Penn State. But regardless, I won't get into that. That's one more topic on our topic list here. So I'll keep those comments brief until we get to that.
I have two things that I want to bring up real quick. The one being about the Georgia-Florida State game. Georgia played one poor quarter in the last 3 years. It was the second quarter against Alabama in the SEC championship game, and that's what kept them from winning a national championship this year. I do think that they could have beaten any of the other 3 teams. And I think that in a rematch, they could beat Alabama.
I agree.
They went out and showed that in their route of Florida State. The other thing with bowl season that it proved is the group of 5 teams should not have an automatic bid into the 12-team playoff. There should be some sort of stipulations that they have to pass to get that, because it would have been disappointing to see Penn State or Ole Miss or whoever ended up being that 12th team at the end of the rankings get out because a Liberty or SMU gets in based on being undefeated or their conference champion or whatever. Because if we would have had to see that, if I would have had to watch Oregon versus fucking Liberty in
for a playoff
in
game,
the playoff
right.
game, and Bo Nix throw 5 touchdowns in the first 3 quarters, I'd have just been so pissed. And Penn State sitting at home, if they'd have been the team that sat because Liberty had an automatic bid into it, I would have just been out of my mind.
Oh yeah.
So I do think George,
and that's what
group of 5 teams deserve to be in the playoff. That's definitely true. But I do think there's some sort of stipulation that has to happen. There's a couple different boxes that need to be checked because not every year do they deserve to put a team in the playoff. There are years that they deserve to have someone guaranteed in a spot. Not every year.
I agree. I would say I think the biggest stipulation was I think they need to be inside the top 15 in the rankings. Like if they're 15th in the rankings, then okay, hey, I'm fine bumping a team down a spot just so we can because again, if you're willing to put a team at 15, obviously I don't think there's a huge discrepancy between a group of 5 number 15 and a power 5 number 12 or whatever the ranking was that gets bounced out. I think that would be the first I think stipulation I would add. Because yeah, I agree. And again, I've been trying to stick up for group of 5 in Liberty, but my biggest concern is, and I brought this up before, is just if we get to that point where we're not going to guarantee a group of 5 representative, without at least some stipulations, like we said, what is the point of having them at this level of football? But again, that's a conversation for another day. Um, Nick, you brought up Ohio State, and as you said, this is something that we wanted to briefly talk about. I'm not sure how brief this is going to be, um, but Slade and I were discussing this over the weekend. I have concern for Ohio State going forward. He broke the news earlier, well, before we went on the air, that his fucking super intelligent source said that no, not Will Howard.
Yeah, Kansas State's quarterback.
Yeah, Will Howard. Yeah, I was thinking Will Rogers from Mississippi State going to Washington. Anyway, Will Howard, the transfer from Kansas State, who's currently crystal balled by On3, 24/7, all those fun sites to go to USC. Slade's source now says that he's going to Ohio State. If that's true, great. Okay, that solves one of the problems I see for them. But if that's not the case, if that doesn't come true, I do have a lot of concern for where Ohio State's quarterback room is heading, because as we just saw in the Cotton Bowl before Devin Brown got hurt, I didn't think he looked that good. And then the third string, freshman quarterback comes in, and I didn't think Kyle Holtz. I don't think he looked that good either. So there's a lot of concern for where Ohio State's quarterback room is going to be, especially with Kyle McCord moving on. They do have the number 6 QB in the country coming in, Aaron Noland. Great name, by the way. But again, are you going to trust putting the keys to this offense? And essentially, I feel like Ryan Day's career at Ohio State, at least. Are you comfortable putting all those hopes and dreams into that young kid's true freshman basket? If they don't get Will Howard, the remaining quarterbacks left in the portal are Malachi Nelson, the USC true freshman. He was a 5-star recruit. He's the number 6 quarterback in the portal right now, according to On3. Jordan McLeod, the senior transfer from James Madison, is the number 15 quarterback. Jaden DeLora, who was absolutely ass at Arizona, and he got benched, and then Vita comes in, leads him to greatness. He's a junior from Arizona, number 19 in the portal. Ty Thompson, who, again, I think will do great things at a school somewhere. I don't know if he's ready to take over Ohio State, but I think he'd be great. He's a redshirt sophomore from Oregon, number 20 in the portal. Jaden Mavia, freshman from UNLV, 23 in the portal, and Dylan Morris, junior from Washington, number 31 in the portal. There was more past that, but I don't think there's any way for or Ohio State goes past that. Outside of the quarterback room, you also look at the wide receiver and the tight end room. Harrison Jr. is out. Noah Rogers is out. Julian Fleming is out. Egbuka. There's
whatever his
some
name is.
question. Yeah, there's some questions about him coming back now. Is he going to declare for the draft? Is he going to transfer? Bringing in, they have the number 1 and number 9 wide receiver from the recruiting class. Again, they're going to be true freshmen. So there's also, is Travion Henderson going to come back for another season, or is he going to take his chance in the NFL? And then the tight end room, Cade Stover, one of the best in the business for the past couple of seasons, he's gone. They have the number 21 and number 27 true freshmen, coming in that recruiting class. I have a lot of concern from where Ohio State is heading. I'm not saying that they're going to fall off a cliff. Obviously, they've done a very good job at developing talent. I just have a lot of questions and like I said, concern for where Ohio State's going to be next season. Slade, since you and I were talking about this first, I'll let you give your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're putting their booster NIL money into the quarterback outlook, in my opinion, is what they're going to end up doing, and it's probably going to be more money going to someone that they probably needed someone with more talent. Now, if they do get Kansas State's quarterback, I feel like he's pretty comparable to Kyle McCord in that he will be able to run their offense the same way that they ran this season, but you're still missing a lot of key players. And then you don't have all the NIL money you need to sign maybe some wide receivers and tight ends to come in, because you can't operate on all true freshmen and still be, in that top 5 teams in the nation like Ohio State's been the last couple of years. I also want to know what Kyle McCord is smoking, because he did the interview and said they asked about the transfer portal and like if the money's real and whatnot. And he's like, yeah, I mean, it's the transfer portal's crazy. There's no like rules or regulations and whatnot. It seems like it's a free for all. But I mean, the real money's in the NFL, in the pros still. It's like, dude, what's his name from Nebraska went on and said anywhere from $1 million to $2 million is what a good quarterback in the transfer portal. What more do you need than that to be considered real money? Like,
Right.
if he goes to the league, he's not making any more.
First of all, he plays like he did last season. Well, I mean, even just playing at Syracuse, he'll be lucky to make anywhere near that in the NFL. But I digress.
I was baffled by like that's like poor man's money is $1 million now in the transfer portal.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think like you said, George, I think that there's a lot of gaps, and Ryan Day needed to beat Michigan this year and have that to kind of get through this first year of transfer portal season. And I think that it's going to be a tough uphill grind for him this upcoming season based on what their team is looking to be.
Back to what you said real quick before we let Nick talk. The main thing I was trying to get across on Saturday, and this is where I think we were having the disagreement, is obviously, yes, Ohio State has a ton of NIL money, and I wasn't saying that they wouldn't throw that at somebody. My concern was, who are you going to pick? Because like you said, if they're not able to get Will Howard, if they're going to bring in another transfer, it's going to have to be somebody far below what I think their standards are. And so that's mainly what I was trying to talk about on Monday or Saturday, whenever we were talking about it, is like, who the fuck are you going to bring in? Because like, yeah, it's great to have all that NIL money, but who are you going to? So that's mainly what I was talking about. I think that's where I thought we were different in our opinions. But anyway, Nick, your thoughts on everything going on in Columbus?
Yeah. So I'll just mention this. There's been rumors going around. I don't know if they've been dispelled at this point or not. But I guess during the whole Michigan cheating investigation, it's come out that Ryan Day and Ohio State might have been a part of their own, which isn't going to help anything that we're talking about if it even becomes remotely true. I mean, we've seen with Michigan, it's not a huge deal. George, you've said it before. Everybody's doing it. Just a matter of who gets caught. I'm sure it'll play a small part. Not going to be huge, but again, something to keep an eye out on. But I think the biggest issue here, obviously everything you guys mentioned, but big picture issue, with all this stuff going on, even if they land the K-State quarterback, like you said, I think he's comparable to McCord, which we've seen this season. It isn't up to the hype of what Ohio State likes to have, behind center. And along with living up to that hype and living up to those expectations, Ryan Day so far has not lived up to the Ohio State expectations. And maybe Ohio State fans don't want to admit it. Maybe a lot of people might not be talking about it. But I think next season, Ryan Day's seat is at the very least getting warm. And because again, he's not reaching those expectations. If he has another season like the last 2 seasons, after the Michigan game they lose against Michigan, I think the talks come out about Ryan Day possibly not being the head coach at Ohio State anymore. Not saying that's for certain. Obviously, I don't know what goes on in the board and all that stuff in those conversations, but just knowing the kind of expectations that Ohio State holds themselves to, and again, they haven't been met the last 2 seasons. It is looking very, very likely they don't get met this season, and that creates a whole lot bigger issue for Ryan Day and Ohio State as a whole. And that was one of the main reasons that I had Ohio State in my worst performances. And talked about not just on the field but off the field, because that Ohio State team showed that their future isn't looking as bright as what I'm sure they hope it is. And who knows? Maybe somebody develops. Maybe one of the young quarterbacks. The bowl game maybe was just a bad game for them. Maybe they get right, whatever. But from what we've seen up to this point, it does not look good. And if it doesn't look good come the start of the season, things are going to start compounding really fast, and that snowball is going to start rolling down that hill very, very quickly and getting larger and larger. And Ryan Day's going to be the one that has to answer for it.
Do you guys think that Ryan? I mean, I personally think that Ryan Day's in the same position as James Franklin, that he's unfireable unless the team just is much worse than what it's been. Like, I think he can lose to Michigan every year, and they can't fire him because he went 11-1 and his only loss is to Michigan. I mean, who else
So
are they going to
I
get in
would
there that the team doesn't take a 4 or 5 year step back in terms of recruits and stuff? Who else can they put in that position that's going to do better than 11-1?
So that's going to be that's really the big thing. I that's why I said Michigan. I'm sure his seat starts to get warm. I don't think he's on the hot seat if he loses, to Michigan this year. But like I said, I think it gets a little warm. For me, like even this past season, there were games that were closer than they should have been. There were games that they looked ugly in. That maybe against a slightly better team they don't win, or it's even closer. I think the Penn State game, and this is unbiased, not saying Penn State has a chance at winning, but I think the Penn State game is really going to be where we find out where Ohio State stands. And we played like dog shit this year against them, and it was still. I mean, if you consider the last touchdown, garbage time touchdown, we'll say it was a 2-possession game. The final score was a 1-possession game. And I think Ohio State takes a step back. Now, whether Penn State takes a step forward or not, that's yet to be seen. But that's really going to be, if Ohio State happens to lose that game, then you're talking 10-2, and we know Ohio State doesn't like to be 10-2, and you're talking 10-2 plus losing to Michigan 3 years in a row. You're not in the you're not winning the Big Ten 3 years in a row. I think that seat starts to get hot real quick if it ends up being 2 games lost and not just the Michigan game loss.
Yeah. I mean, if it comes down to if Ryan Day continues to lose to Ohio State, I don't think it's going to be the school's choice. It's the boosters at that point, especially if this continues. I'd say if it gets to 4 years, if it happens again, I can honestly see the boosters stepping in and raising. You want to talk about how much money they raise for NIL? I can see them raising enough money to buy out Ryan Day's contract and get him out of there.
Right.
That's just, I mean, and we've seen that in the past.
Who do
I
they
understand
replace, though?
I don't think they would. I mean,
That's
at
just my
that
question,
point,
because Penn State has enough boosters that they could buy out James Franklin tomorrow if they wanted to, and he's got quite the buyout. But I mean, who do you put in the position?
I think the difference is, and this is sad to say, but as a Penn State fan who's watched it and has watched fans be happy at being 10-2, not all of them, obviously, but have watched fans be happy at 10-2. Ohio State holds themselves to a higher standard than what we do, and that's plain and simple. And it wasn't always like that. It seems to be a recent thing. But I'm pretty sure even Ryan Day said it himself. I think it was last year after the loss to Michigan. He kind of portrays himself as like that Nick Saban, like he could go 11-1, and as Nick Saban called it, a rebuild year. And I think that's that big difference there is, Penn State kind of seems okay with being, slightly above mediocre, being good, not great. And, we've heard it from everybody in Ohio State the last couple of years. That's not the expectations they have. Their expectations are being great. And that to me is the big difference. Now, like you make a good point, because who are you going to hire? Like the same conversation we had a couple weeks ago about James Franklin. Like maybe that's why we're content being 10-2, because 10-2 sounds better than 7-5. But at the end of the day, it is Ohio State. They tend to be able to recruit better. Now, maybe that is on the coaches and not just the history and the recent performances. So it's something I'm definitely going to keep an eye on, not just for the sake of seeing how it goes, but obviously because we play.
Moving on and to our final topic, obviously in the spirit of New Year's, we talked about this a little bit in our group chat, but just quickly, what is your New Year's resolution for the Jack Wagon Sports podcast? Some things you want us to do or try or get away from, or just some overall goals you have for us. Slade, we'll let you go first.
I want us to get to the bottom of the cheating scandal within the Big Ten and college football. Who started the sign stealing? I mean, I honestly think that Michigan could win the national championship this upcoming Monday, and that could be the last we hear of the cheating scandals. That it'll just be the only storyline you hear is Michigan won a national championship and Florida State is looking for someone to buy out their $500 million buyout with the ACC. Like I truly think that if Michigan wins the national title, you're not gonna hear anything about sign stealing the entire offseason.
Yeah. Slade.
Yeah, I just went.
Nick.
So actually, I wanted to talk about this earlier, so I'll make this very quick. Florida State, I just want to tell you, I've already basically called you bitches, but I'm also going to call you morons. You have it made in the ACC. When Clemson's having a good year, they're your biggest competition. Obviously, some teams pop in every once in a while. But if you're going to continue to build a good team, you're looking at your best chance at getting multiple conference championships. And I get it. You got snubbed this year. Again, you weren't one of the 4 best teams. Did you deserve to be in based off of winning your conference, being undefeated? Yes, you did, but you weren't one of the 4 best teams. Get over yourself. But again, you have it made where realistically, especially with this past season you should be able to continue to compete for conference championships. You go to the Big Ten or the SEC. I hate to tell you, that schedule is going to look a whole lot different than your soft ass ACC schedule you had. Especially, yes, they played LSU. I get it. It was week 1, but you're talking very competitive. What was your hardest game this year is going to be what half your schedule looks like if you go to either one of those conferences. I don't even know what your beef is at the ACC at this point. Maybe just because it is so soft that it wasn't enough to get you into the college football playoffs. I don't know. If I'm them, I would have just shut my mouth and went out and did what I could to try to prove everybody wrong next year. But I'm not Florida State. I just wanted to say that. So anyway, New Year's resolution. We've talked about it. We've been doing this show, 3 years now? I believe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we still have yet to
God
get
damn.
to a college. I know, right? That's why it didn't sound right when I said it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we still have yet to all get together and go to a college football game and do our live game day, so to speak, at the location. So I'm hoping that we can get that done in 2024.
Yeah, that's definitely on there. The other one that you said in the group chat that I really liked is I want to do it across 2 platforms. I think 3 is unreasonable considering that we don't really use 3. But TikTok and YouTube, I would like to get to 1,000 followers and subscribers each. And I think you said combined. That would be great. I really want to shoot for each independently. I think that'd be great, especially with now I got my PC and I can work on NCAA 14 content, which I think is going to be a lot of fun, and something to keep us churning out content as the off season wears on. I mean, you guys, I would say Nick Nick had a good one. Obviously all of us get together. I don't know if I have another one on top of that. I think I was just
so Slade, you said yours was shit.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, his was not. Never mind. But that'll do it for this week's episode. As always,
point.
Yeah. As always, we thank you guys for checking us out and spending an hour and a half with us. It's been a lot of fun. We hope you guys enjoyed it as well. We will be back next Thursday. We're going to break down the national championship game, talk all about that, and do some more off-season housekeeping as we go. We will see you guys in the next video.